What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Truth Seeking Thursday with Jay Young here, and myself, Greg Dowd, and we're going to be talking about Worldcoin tonight and what the implications of that is on your future in this whole world and society that we're living in right now, and the technological technocracy overlords that are building the things behind the scenes while we're all arguing with each other about events that have just gone down. So uh, I think it's important to get the word out about some of this stuff. There's a really good interview on Tucker Carlson that I'd like to show about this tonight. And then what's been going on with you, Jay? While we're kind of queuing some stuff up here.
Life's good. So as we were talking about before, I'm getting the blog put together about Bitcoin. Looking forward to hopefully getting that rolled out publicly facing by Jan 1. It's funny, we're talking about all the stuff that's happened in the back end as we all argue with each other. And I've been using one of the major LLMs to get my blog put together. So it's definitely definitely a double-edged sword in terms of tools that are out there. And I definitely appreciate your attitude around trying to be vigilant about these sorts of things. Using it in the proper way and trying to avoid or at least be vigilant about improper usage.
Yeah, I think it is important that we're aware of all this stuff that's going on, and I do see the AI can be used as a tool. It very much well, listening to some of these guys talk, especially this guy on this Tucker Carlson interview, it may seem that some of the folks that are behind AI, they have an alternative plan for its implementation, and so like to raise the awareness on some of that.
Yeah.
So, um, so yeah, it would be cool. I mean, we've talked about before about having the difference between like these AIs that are running on all these other guys' servers, and then versus if you had your own server and you had your own little AI system running, um, you could use what they has been programmed and adopted into some kind of local system where it's not collecting and scraping your data all the time, basically.
Mm-hmm.
um, I do think that part of this thing is going on with all this stuff is to be able to make more predictions, more future predictions based on your inquiries and your what you're feeding the AI.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are using it right now for making images and a better search engine, using it in that way. And so, all the while you're doing that, these things are collecting all that information. So,
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Is they offer these LLMs for free, and it's pretty obvious what they're doing is just like what Google does, right, with Gmail and all these other products. Is if you don't know what the product is, you want the product, and I'm sure that I speculate that you know OpenAI and Twitter, all these companies, they're looking at the queries, the prompts that people are building on the front end and feeding to their LLMs, and then they're also looking at to see what are the LLMs pumping back out, and they're looking at that interaction, And here's the funny thing about it: it wouldn't. So I could see that maybe that they are using humans to analyze this stuff, but I could see they don't have to do that. They just collect up all this data that's being generated in real time and feed it to the next LLM, right? And they use that to create the next layer. And it really is it is that what's that called, positive cycle, right? And for good or for bad, that's what it is. And it's gotten to the point where it's machines creating machines at this point.
machines. What is that? that part in the Matrix, I love it because Ernest Hancock does this on his show. He plays this segment of when Morpheus is in Zion, and he's like, "We have to, fight against the machines and stuff," and making this speech.
Yeah,
Um, that's if I can key that up, I will.
yeah, that's a great one. Is that where he's kind of addressing the broader audience of Zion? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great scene.
yeah,
And and Lawrence Fishburne played Morpheus so well. He had that booming voice that kind of went out, and he was really in his element, kind of in the prime of his career. In my opinion, at the prime of his career, he played Morpheus so well.
yeah. That was a great movie. I remember. I never saw it in the theaters back in the day, but I know there's so much symbolism in that movie. It's crazy.
Yeah, remember watching it was almost like a documentary about the making of the Matrix, and they talked about the the fact that I think the Wachowski brothers they asked all the main actors to read some literature, and I think one of them was I'm going to butcher the name, Simulation Simulacrum, and it had to do with the idea of it was a philosophical treatise, and it had to do with the idea of if I create a perfect copy of something, what if I call that something A, and then the copy is B, and we cannot distinguish between the two, philosophically speaking, if I destroy A and I'm left with B, is there any difference? And that's almost a philosophical question that Star Trek kind of brought up with their transporter technology. Is are we really transporting the original human through a transporter, or are we destroying one thing and virtually creating a copy? And some people would say, externally would say, well, it doesn't matter. From my point of view, it's the same thing. But if you're the person getting transported, it does matter to them. And I think the Matrix did a really good job of kind of bring that all full circle.
Yeah, yeah. I've looked at just some of the descriptions of what they've talked about being able to transport things or quantum entangle
Yeah,
things and
yeah,
be able to like teleport them, and it's almost like you're moving information really,
yeah,
like you're condensing it into a form of information and you're sending it somewhere else
yeah.
to make a copy of that thing. um yeah, it's pretty wild. Have you ever looked into Ashton Forbes? Have you seen that guy at all?
I don't think so.
So he's really into the MH370, the disappearance of that Malaysian
Oh,
airplane.
sure. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, just went missing, and he thinks that his theory in looking at all the technology that's out there and current patent stuff, that they actually teleported MH370 and these orbs were flying around it in the videos, and
Hmm.
that MH370 was actually teleported somewhere.
Okay.
And from the video, it is really interesting because it does look like from the FLIR or the heat signature of the whole thing, it's like an endothermic thing that's happening where it starts to get cold around the area where it just disappears
Okay.
with these orbs flying around it. And yeah, his stuff's pretty interesting because he's talking about how do they have this footage? Is this footage real? And goes into there's this technology called the Gorgon um, lens, I guess, that would allow for this video to be captured.
Hmm.
I'll have to look it up real quick.
While you're looking that up, there's a great interviewer. His name's Kurt Jamengal on YouTube, and he interviews typically theoretical physicists, working physicists. And he interviewed a gentleman by the name of Ted Jacobson a few months ago. And Ted Jacobson, uh, I'm not going to say he proved anything, but he is I guess mathematically, he feels that he derived gravity from entropy. So you take the properties or the features of entropy, and you feel like, well, gravity may not be an inherent feature of the universe. Gravity may be an emergent property of entropy. And what you're talking about in regards to how the space around the airplane had cooled down makes you wonder if maybe whatever entity did this, they were controlling the entropy around this thing, and they were able to channel that, gravitically speaking.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I mean, if you ever get some time to look into it, it's follow Ashton Forbes on Twitter, and he's posting about the stuff all the time. Been on a bunch of different interviews. It's really
Cool.
interesting. But this is the technology, the Gorgon Stare, video capture technology developed by the United States military. Spherical array of 9 cameras attached to an aerial dome. U.S. Air Force calls it wide area surveillance sensor system. So it says system is capable of capturing motion imagery of an entire city, which can then be analyzed by people or an artificial intelligence, such as the Mind's Eye project being developed by DARPA. So this is the technology he was saying that was revealed not too long ago, and then this would have been around the time this technology would have been there around the time that the whole disappearance of MH370 happened.
Okay.
So he's saying it's very likely that this imagery is real. And it's not like a fabricated AI construction or something like that.
Okay. So I don't know if I'm thinking of the same thing, but I know that I think the DoD was looking at the possibility of creating ultra high res images. So instead of like your typical megapixel size, these would be tens of gigapixels, right, per shot, and then allows any entity to focus in on one tiny little area, and kind of what you're talking about, where it can be fed into an AI, and it doesn't need to be a continuous stream. It could just be a series of photographs, if you will, and then any entity can look at and compare what's happening. I wonder if that was the same thing, and it looked like in the description on the Wikipedia page there might be some crossover there.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this Mind's Eye project. I'd have to dig into that further.
That's cool.
But yeah, that's the road that we're walking down, which leads us into what's up with these bigger techie guys, their ties with the Kabbalah and all that esoteric jazz, Brianna says. And that's one of the videos I wanted to share, is this recent interview on Tucker Carlson talking about this issue. So let me pull this up, and we'll play a little bit of this and have a discussion.
People was that they picked up Kabbalah from the Babylonians back in maybe 5th century before Christ, and that they kept it. It eventually becomes, Kabbalah is essentially, it's a form of and people would say magic. I mean, Gary Lockman says that what we think of as occultism is all essentially Kabbalah, at least in the West. It's a form of magic. It's a form of, I'm going to butcher this because I'm not a scholar on it. But essentially, what Nick Land believes is the Jewish people, that they kept the Kabbalah. It eventually becomes digital life, through ones and zeros.
But it's a Gnostic religion, which is to say it's hidden from non-initiates.
Yeah, I mean, there's a mainstream version of it, but it eventually kind of becomes what they believe. it's a precursor to digital life. So what Land and a lot of these people believe is that the actual salvation that the Jewish people provided was keeping Kabbalah, which eventually becomes digital life, which eventually becomes AI, which eventually becomes the creatures in the book of Revelation, which essentially later go on to destroy humanity and fulfill the book of Revelation. But that is a good thing. A lot of them believe.
Something amazing is happening in the U.S. after.
All right, so yeah, that was the portion that these guys were talking about. Yeah, so I suggest watching the entire interview because it's really all the information going into it. But yeah, this is part of what the beliefs are of some of these guys in the tech world.
Hey, I apologize. Did your audio, any of your settings for your audio change? I'm having the audio is coming in kind of muffled and intermittent. Or maybe we can ask the audience if they can hear us okay.
Yeah, let me.
There we go. That was it.
Let me double check here.
I think you're good now.
Cool.
Thanks. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
So I apologize. You want to go back to where you started?
Yeah. So this is a really good interview on bringing together where some of these tech guys may be thinking in lines of this creating this digital entity that is bringing about these like demons based on the stuff in Revelation. And if you listen to the entire interview, it goes deeper into what the origins of this Kabbalah was looking to manifest, really.
Okay.
And so
it's really Brianna's saying, oh, she can't hear you.
Can't hear me?
Yeah. Brianna, can you hear me okay?
Let's see if the audio is back on the stream. 5x5, if you guys can hear me. You can hear me, Jay?
Yeah.
Okay. We should be good on the audio. All right, cool.
Okay.
How can we safeguard ourselves and our likely likeness from the machine and the evil? That's a good question. I think one of the things is don't accept the digital ID, and it's going to lead into this whole Worldcoin thing that I wanted to cover.
Okay.
So got another little video pulled up about introing us into that. So I'll pull this up from Clip Genie here again. This is from the Grand Theft World podcast, and this is Etienne de Boete, and he's written some pieces on the government, and To See the Cage is to Leave It is one of his new books. And we're going to play this section.
Like ultimately, that's why the scanning of the retina, the Worldcoin is trying to get all of the retina scans, is they want your digital persona. They want to be able to turn off people on the internet at will. They want to have programmable money. They want to have a social credit score. But those, I think, are the long-term goals. And I think that the real ID is that stepping stone to to the internet and the social credit score, and being able to debank, people at will as well.
Yeah, and if we know that the people who
are kind of running things, if debanking to them is like totally palatable option, right, for behavioral modification, then finding out that all these people are kind of linked together, we're being presented this story that like Elon Musk and Donald Trump are at odds with these different guys, and like Mark Carney and Donald Trump, they're at odds. Meanwhile, Brookfield Asset Management bailed out Jared Kushner's brother Joshua and his company, and so it's like they're all doing business with each other on this grand level, but it's all behind the scenes. And yeah, like professional wrestling, it's presented to us in this like good guy, bad guy, pick which side you want. Sometimes they'll switch sides, but we're entranced by this storyline and feel like we're a part of it because we get to vote for the rotating levels of gangsters that make themselves available. But
they pretend to let us elect them.
Yeah,
it's the Carney Trump connection, and then Elon Musk too. Like they're all kind of, we covered that a few weeks ago, how they're all kind of intertwined. It's like even becoming more conspicuous just out in the open that is all just theater, that they're all just working in cahoots behind the scenes, but people just are divided,
So my thesis with Musk is twofold. Is number one, I think he's DARPA's boy that takes technologies that have been invented on the taxpayer nickel and then privatizes the profits for, kind of DARPA and In-Q-Tel kind of insiders. And then also because he's been made to be the wealthiest man in the world, going back to my example from earlier of, people looking at the highest status monkey. So they put him on top of X, where, it's Elon's tweets all the time. And so, they're being able to steer human perception by taking the highest status monkey and giving him, and Trump. So like Trump has a social network platform. Elon Musk has a social network platform. Zuckerberg, they're able to kind of steer human perception using this, this highest status monkey, people's innate biological desire to look for and even pay for with their attention and their time, looking at pictures of higher status monkeys. We're steering human perception using behavioral psychology.
It's really interesting because that's one of the pieces I think we're going to close with tonight is a film called Star Suckers. I think we're going to do at least part one. And they get into the psychology of how children are indoctrinated to desire above all other things this fame culture, where they think fame, the concept of just being well known, clout, all these things are the way towards success, more than good work ethic or effort or ethics, any of these things. They're like, fame will solve all my problems, money will come, everything will be solved. And reality TV, the rise of reality TV in the last 25 years has been this thing that made fame a little more accessible. Social media, now you can reach out to your favorite celebrity and kind of talk to them, kind of have more of a connection, right? So it's like, in a way, turned it into, like, I don't want to call it a religious experience, but in the process of like celebritism, they're trying to get you closer to your deity, as it were, right? So you feel more connected to
your idol.
All right, well, yeah, so the whole Worldcoin thing, I believe, is pushing us into this tokenizing things so that you're gonna voluntarily give up your identifying markers, your biological identifying markers, in order to build out this system so that you're going to be having to access the internet by giving your little retinal scan or something like that to be able to get on there. So
for the audience's case, do we want to cover a little bit about what we know about Worldcoin and some of its stated intentions and features, and maybe after that go into some of the what we consider pros and cons?
Yes. Yeah, so here's the WorldCoin website that is talking to you about what they're trying to do. So World ID ensures secure access to things only humans, not bots, should have access to, like financial services, concert ticket sales, dating apps, and video games. So what is World ID? World ID is an anonymous proof of human for the age of AI. Securely and anonymously prove you're a real and unique human online. How do you get World ID? You just scan this little QR code. Get the World app.
Yeah.
Use World ID to verify that you are real and unique human, not a bot, to access things only humans should. Like all that stuff. So, because there's all these bots and stuff running around online, I guess, World ID is here to help you out.
Yeah. So I put in our chat, if anyone goes to the Brave search engine, they just do Worldcoin summary, Worldcoin being one word, Worldcoin summary. And I think they did a pretty good job of summarizing what it is within just 2 or 3 paragraphs. If you don't mind just me reading from this. Worldcoin, now rebranded as World, is a digital identity and cryptocurrency initiative co-founded in 2019 by Sam Altman, who is CEO of OpenAI, Max Novenstern, and Alex Blania through their company Tools for Humanity. The project aims to create a global, decentralized identity system called World ID, which verifies users as unique humans through biometric iris scans using a device known as the Orb. This verification is designed to combat AI-generated content and fraud by providing a proof of personhood system. The World ID serves as a digital passport, allowing users to prove their humanity online without revealing personal information. The project's core token, Worldcoin, WLD, is an ERC20 token built on the Ethereum blockchain, functions as a layer 2 cryptocurrency, leveraging Ethereum's security while operating its own economy. For the audience, when we talk about ERC20 tokens, if you think of stable coins, all stable coins, at least the popular ones, use what they call ERC20 standards. That's just a standard within the Ethereum crypto asset ecology. WLD is distributed to verified users as part of a unique economic model, offering free tokens to individuals who complete the iris scan verification process, with the goal of promoting global economic inclusion and creating a form of universal basic income. The total supply of WLD is capped at 10 million tokens, with 79% allocated to the community for broad distribution. And there's some other stuff that goes in there. So I think that summary does a pretty good job of explaining what it is. And if you look in that summary, and Greg was kind of pointing out, you can see in the superscripts that there are citations and references in there. So Brave isn't just pulling this out of the ether. It actually is using sources in there, and it's interesting because by itself, I agree with the idea that it would be great to have a mechanism to distinguish between humans and AI. No doubt about it. What I don't like is all the other stuff that goes along with it.
Right. I mean, it's always like, here's this offer that we're going to give you, and you're going to have these free tokens, but it's not really free. It's you giving up your identification so that you can enter into this more highly surveilled world, basically. I mean,
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff, a lot of these things are sold to people as like, yeah, this is going to help you out, and this is going to be great, and this is going to be like going to make your life more convenient. But really, the tool in the background is just to be able to keep track of you, more control, less privacy, uh, and just being sold to you is something that's good. Uh, and I think this is going to lead into a whole social credit system too. So if they're talking about like, okay, now you need to get online with your WorldCoin World ID, and we're going to need to make sure that you're who you say you are. We can't have you be entering onto the internet without verifying that you're a human, so that we can make sure that you're being safe online and you're not posting any kind of extremist information or anything like that. Um, so yeah, broader the broader view of this, like it's always sold to you as like it's going to be some good thing, but it's something that's going to be used as a control technique.
You know, it's funny because on their own website, they say that it's a decentralized network. And if you go through if you actually go through the details on their website and you go through that Brave search engine summary, you see it is absolutely not decentralized. So for example, you still have to go through centralized nodes to get an ID, which requires them actually verifying the person, right? And then scanning the person's ID. Well, by definition, that's not decentralized. That's centralized, right? You only have a limited number of nodes, and you basically have to get permission to enter that system, that ecology. You know, and we can compare this to Bitcoin, which is completely permissionless and truly is decentralized. There's no IT help desk to get in there. It's completely permissionless and voluntary. You know, if I want to participate and Greg doesn't want to, you know, he doesn't have to. There's nothing in there. Conversely, if when I got into Bitcoin, I didn't have to call the IT help desk. I could just created my own wallet and I just went to town, you know. And whereas with this right here, they're saying that you have to go through a process to get scanned and then to be issued an ID, some sort of a unique identifier. It's almost like a serial number, right? And then to add insult to injury, I think on the WorldCoin Wikipedia page, in the opening section, they talk about how they've actually been working with the Taiwan and Malay governments, and I think there are several countries that they identify in the Wikipedia page. Well, if they're doing that, by definition, that's not decentralized. You know, that is centralization. And the moment that a government can essentially provide any sort of sanctioning on there, or government is required for sanctioning, by definition, that's not decentralized. You know, so it really is the exact opposite they're selling here.
Yeah, and they're saying that okay, so in this part where it talks about the orb, which is the eye scanner, used to verify a person's humanness and uniqueness as part of the World ID protocol. It does this by first ensuring the person standing in front of it is human. Then photos of the eyes are abstracted and permanently encrypted into anonymous fragments that independent parties process to determine that the person is unique. Subsequently, all photos and all photo derivatives are packaged, encrypted, and signed by the orb to ensure authenticity and security, then sent to the user's phone through the orb backend server. Importantly, the backend cannot decrypt the data. All photos are then deleted from the orb. To prioritize privacy, all of the humanness verification occurs on the orb itself without sending data to the orb backend. We promise. We swear.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, so in my notes, I say the verification device, which scans the iris, is called the orb. This is an attack vector. It's that simple. And I guarantee you that at no time is the software for the orb open source. I guarantee you it is closed source, it is proprietary. And if we wanted to create our own open source software, right, and open source hardware on this, that would not be permitted in this ecology, right? And just for the audience, when we talk about open source, meaning anyone can download the software, they can verify it, and then we can check that this was, there are cryptographic ways of checking, yes, this is the actual software that was issued by the original developer and is completely open source. They would not allow that, right? And so, you know, Greg's making a great point around, oh yeah, we promise, we promise, I won't keep any of this data. Well, I trust that as much as I trust that the TSA, when I go on a plane, isn't keeping my scan when I go through the microwave detector, all right, or millimeter wave detector, right? They say, oh, it's gone after 15 seconds.
Your
Okay.
nude X-ray, yeah, it's not some dude,
yeah, exactly.
or lady using that as their spank material. Or
Yeah,
something.
and it's funny you're saying that because there's actual video, I believe, on YouTube that shows that is hackable, right? There are multiple instances of people actually taking pictures over TSA's shoulder onto the screen and then taking that image and uploading it. Well, that's not hack proof. By definition, that can be taken.
Yeah. So okay. So going into this whole proof of human thing that they're talking about in this article, which is connected to their website here, they're saying because artificial intelligence exists, now we need to offer this as a solution to make sure that you're a human being and not artificial intelligence. So we created this artificial intelligence, and now it's an issue, and here's the solution that we're giving you. As AI progresses, humans are losing the ability to differentiate between bots and other humans online. Such a scenario was first imagined by mathematician Alan Turing in 1950. His Turing test was proposed as a way to measure a machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behavior indistinguishable from that of a human, a test that was passed for the first time by ChatGPT-4 earlier this year. Humans need a counterpart to advanced AI, one that allows them to know who or what has been created by a verified human online. That's where proof of human solutions like World ID come in. Orb verified World ID helps anonymously ensure World Network members are real and unique humans. This includes cutting-edge cryptography, personal custody features to ensure their data is always private, secure, and only controlled by the individual. We swear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, they're always, they keep talking about, yeah, it's only your data. It's like, no, we're not sharing it. You know, definitely not going to be used against you in the future.
Yeah. You know, to add to what you're saying, on the Wikipedia page in the opening section, they talked about the fact that they don't use my terminology. I'm using the terminology, but they are saying it is subject to government regulation. So on the Wikipedia page, it says, quote, World switched its data storage to a secure multi-party computation (MPC) encrypted method, stating the move is part of its efforts to comply with the EU's General Data Protection Regulation. Well, if they can change the data storage methodology that easily, then it's not decentralized. That's number one. Number two, they're basically admitting that it is subject to government regulation. That government can basically lean on it and put its thumb on the scale and cause it to shift its methodology and its mission, right? Well, that means they can hoover in all this data on the front end of the process, and then any state or super state, such as the EU, can make changes, regulatory or legal changes, and then say, okay, well, we want this. We want you to open up the books. You now have to open up the books, right? And you have to give us all this information, whatever that information is. Well, then, and obviously they're saying, yeah, we can do that. We can just change the mode, the methodology, midstream, and there's nothing you can do about it, And if you think about it, is that any different than what the NSA did with their massive data center in Utah? Right? They create this massive data system. They hoover up all this data, right? And whatever agency we're talking about, and then it takes a person like Snowden to show, hey, you've been pulling this data in, right? And look, this goes all the way back to Echelon, right, where they were hoovering up all this data, and any of the inter-service agencies can come in and they can query these massive data sources, and this is. It is not what they claim it to be, at least in the spirit of things.
Hey, Alabama says the younger you are, the more likely you are to jump on this because your thinking skills aren't there yet. I mean, my younger brothers, I know that talking to them, they are all about technology, new technology, things like that, and I think one of my younger brothers was talking about the idea when Andrew Yang was, I guess, campaigning, talking about having some kind of universal basic income, and how that would be so great for the world, is for everyone to derive some type of universal basic income. And when you get into that and you're like, okay, what are these stipulations for, and once you become dependent on this universal basic income, like, do you think that people are going to be like looking to strive to do more things, or are they just going to be like chilling and eating potato chips or some bug goo or something, whatever it is,
right.
just chilling with their UBI? And are they going to be incentivized to go out and make something of themselves or do something in the world that actually helps humanity, or is it going to just allow people to just fall into this, like, I get this UBI, so I'm set and I'm just going to chill out? And then what happens if you want to start speaking your mind about things, like,
right,
you're now dependent on this UBI, and you're going to start speaking out against the system that gives you this UBI.
Yep.
So now you've got the hooks in you, and you're less likely that you're going to be able to speak out against things once you become hooked on this UBI drug.
Yeah. I think there was a term called the iron rice bowl that was coined a few decades ago, and it had to do with the idea that every person in this country, I don't remember if it was China or Vietnam, but this idea that every person at a minimum they are entitled to a certain amount of food. So they're trying to set the floor for what every person should get. And then after a while, that became they also set a ceiling that if every person doesn't have access to that floor, that bowl of rice, then no one should be allowed to proceed or succeed beyond a certain ceiling either. So they basically defined these arbitrary and nefarious boundaries, if you will, guardrails. There was a bare minimum and a maximum that any person could have or achieve. And so it morphed from the rice bowl to the iron rice bowl. And so it became this virtual prison, if you will. And it's very much what you just talked about, Greg, is this idea that if this pretend entity we call government can bestow upon the people certain privileges and powers, right? It could be just as easily taken away and more importantly, it always comes with conditions. And we saw this, for example, so we've seen it throughout history, throughout different countries. But in the United States, we've seen this with the welfare state, and we've seen it with academics, right? And those, from a socioeconomic point of view, these are the two ends of the spectrum, right? Where the welfare state is supposed to be considered the lower end of the socioeconomic class, and the academics is supposed to be considered the higher end. And in both instances, we're seeing cases where the state, the government, is putting conditions on the money that's given out. And this, in my opinion, has so much, is the cause for the liberalization, right? The progressivization of our modern academic institutions, which are supposed to be the places where free speech was promoted, and ideas, radical ideas could be expressed, right, without any sort of censorship. And now it's the exact opposite of that. You want this money, you do what we say, and you say what we say, and that's where we are.
Yeah. So this is one of the things, one of the reasons why I wanted to start talking publicly online, was to warn people about some of this stuff and be able to give you solutions to be able to avoid it, because this is coming our direction. All these things are already in place. The Worldcoin is already out there. They're already getting people to do this. The social credit system is already implemented in China. They already have a social credit system. So I want to go to that. Let's see. Yeah, this new system of commerce will be universal. It will be compulsory. It will be associated with the worship of the beast. It is written. Yeah, that goes back to the whole thing that the video we showed about the Kabbalah, and bringing about this whole AI system and relating it to what has been written in the Bible. It's like this system is like a manifestation of what was written, and they're kind of following along those lines. It's kind of interesting. Hey, Alabama says slave workers in China get roughly 2 tablespoons of rice a day in a cement cell to sleep in that you can't stand up in, get sick or make mistakes at work, and then the ration is cut in half. Yeah, I think a lot of people will accept this and be walking blindly into it, and that if you're not aware of these things, that you might, I mean, it's a trick. It's always like, it's always this promise of something, right, that's gonna maybe improve your life or help you in some way, but there's always a catch to it. It's like the idea of the genie was always like kind of a mischievous character, where he grants you some wishes, but those wishes had caveats. And there's several movies made about that. Like, I know Brendan Fraser, one of the best one is Brendan Fraser that comes to mind. I think
Elizabeth Hurley.
Yeah, Elizabeth Hurley and Brendan Fraser, and I think it was called Bedazzled. It was the
great movie.
And it is like, he wants to be like the most amazing poet or something like that, but then he like can't be intimate with a woman or something like that.
Yeah.
All this, it's always like a caveat to everything.
Yeah, that really was kind of the embodiment of the Faustian bargain, right?
Yeah,
there's all
the
of
Faustian deal.
Yeah, and there's all these things, and I think that you said it well. Is the jinn was always very mischievous, right? And it's like, oh, I'll give you what you want, but you're getting all this other stuff that comes with it too.
Yeah.
If I could just focus on something. So Hey Alabama said, I'd like to see how to make a car note, house note, and groceries off $1,700 a month. And that's a really good point. It's a very good question. And we talk about UBI and universal basic income, and I hear so many people say, oh, we need UBI. UBI can work. Well, historically speaking, we've seen instances where this has been tried, especially in Europe, and it has absolutely not worked. In fact, it is demonstrably shown that people's personal situations become worse over time. And, there are a whole slew of sociological and psychological reasons for that. But in those instances, they had 99% of the country supporting that 1% of the country, right? And so the rest of the country was basically free market, providing for those people. But if we really had true UBI, and I think, Greg, you touched on this properly. People will become more and more slovenly, right? And taking one step further back in the process, where's the money come from, right? And there's only two ways it can happen. You can either take it through theft, which we commonly call taxation, or you can print the money, right? And it's very easy for government to say, okay, we're going to give everyone $2,000, right? Or everyone who needs it $2,000, right? And that's it, $2,000. You're good. The problem with this, and we've seen this, for literally thousands of years now, that when government engages inflation of the money supply, that increases price inflation, which by definition destroys people's purchasing power, right? So the price of goods and services goes up, and yet people's quote unquote income stays the same. Their purchasing power goes down over the time, right? And conversely, we could say, oh, well, we'll just implement capital controls, right? And price controls. You cannot increase prices. Okay, great. That means by definition, we have a decrease in the availability of goods and services. That is what happens every single time, and we've seen this time and time again. And it's very apparent in the socialistic countries. It's very apparent in the countries that call themselves communists, right? There's always a dearth of much needed, necessary goods and services because of price controls, capital controls, and wage controls. It's always the case. And these bureaucrats have zero ability to project into the future what the markets really need. And there's only one entity that can do that efficiently and properly, and that is the market itself. And UBI is the complete antithesis of those properly allocating resource methodologies.
Yeah, you need the information feedback for what prices truly are in the market. Otherwise, you're not able to shift with different circumstances that are happening. Like there might be some shortage of this thing in this area, so the prices should increase on that item to be able to factor in for the maybe distribution of those shortages and from a different area.
Yeah.
And that price should reflect that. But like you said, when you enact these price controls, then why is someone incentivized to bring in different products when they're going to get paid the same for taking all that effort to bring it in from a different area and get paid the same amount of money? Like nobody's going to take that on. And so you're going to be left with shortages and it's all going to fall apart.
Yeah.
So, like it sounds nice, right? It's just like on the surface, it sounds nice. Like, hey, we can just make sure that everybody's got some kind of stable form of income and everybody will be taken care of. But it doesn't factor in all these different ways that things happen in reality where you need to be able, and like you said, once you start giving out all this money, where does it come from? It's like it has to be new digits that are created. If you're moving into some digital system, it's got to be some new digits that are created. So your credits or whatever your stable coins or whatever it's gonna be, is gonna have to be inflated in some way, and so those credits will be less and less. Will get you less and less over time. So it's always the same story. I mean, it's like you need free markets. You can't have this like kind of centrally planned system because you can't factor in for all these different changes that are going to occur. And when you have a free market, it's more like what happens naturally as environmental changes happen with biology. There are adaptations that are made by the different biology in that area so that they can adapt and survive to the next generation. So,
Yeah.
Similarly, that's the way the market works with prices and discovery of prices
Mm-hmm.
for what that local market will bear. There's this really good documentary that I ran across years ago called Poverty Inc. And it talks about the uh, when aid is brought into a country and they bring in like free food to distribute into the local economy in the local area, that it totally just devastates their local economy because there were local food producers that are now getting put out of business because no one wants to buy the stuff from them. They can get the free stuff that's coming in from all this aid from foreign countries. And so it just devastates the local economy. So it's like you think you're doing something good, but it actually has bad intentions for people to stand on their own and be able to have that market work locally to be able to provide everything for the people that are there.
I'll have to watch it. It's called Poverty Inc.
Poverty Inc. And it might be a little difficult to find. I remember, I think I had to find it on one of those. I couldn't find it in a lot of places at the time. I don't know if it might be more available. You might have to torrent it with Deluge or
Sure.
however you do the torrent stuff. But yeah, it's a really good documentary. It really shows you how, you think you're doing the right thing by helping people, but when you provide all this aid, it really disrupts local economies. And so similarly to what these guys are promising you with this Worldcoin and going to be some kind of UBI, but you just got to give up your biological identification. Yeah, it's the same story.
Yeah. I did, just while you're talking, I did a little bit of a search around. It looks like there is a webpage just for this, and it's possible it may also be on YouTube. When I did a search, there is a link that came up for Poverty Inc. Released on November 4th, 2016. So that may or may not be the one. But yeah, I think what you're saying, I bet we could probably find it in torrents as well. So the Pirate Bay, for anyone who's interested, the Pirate Bay is a place where you can look for torrents. So yeah, that might be possible. Yeah, I like Hey Alabama's comment. Alexander Solzhenitsyn should be required reading every year until you graduate, starting in 5th grade. Yeah, so I haven't read it yet, but there's a good buddy of mine, Mike. He said he read it. He said he had to stop because it was so brutal the way that the way the author described what was happening, that he couldn't keep reading it. It was just too disturbing.
Yeah, I believe this is the correct documentary, actually.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, that's the right one.
Okay, cool. I'll have to check it out. I appreciate you pulling that out. Yeah, it's sad that we make the same lessons. Mistakes. Decade after decade, century after century. We don't learn them. And it's interesting. Here's the double-edged sword. On the one hand, we need the next generation to kind of slough off the, I'll say, prejudices. When I say that, I don't mean racial prejudices. I also mean prejudices on methodologies, techniques, things like that. We need the new generation to bring new methodologies that are actually truly viable, and to get rid of irrational thinking, kind of push it to the side, leave it behind. Yeah, on the other hand, if they're not learning the lessons of the past, they're going to continue to say the same thing. And how many decades have we heard about UBI, right? So I think that's the double-edged sword with every new generation.
Yeah, it is. I think it is important to have a library and to collect some books, especially some books that go over the history of what has gone on up that has led us to this point. Like one of the books that I'd recommend to everybody out there is the book Tragedy and Hope
Mm.
by Carol Quigley. And, that goes into Cecil Rhodes, the Rothschilds, the whole diamond mining thing, and the creation of kind of an Anglo American establishment. And Carol Quigley, I believe, was one of Bill Clinton's mentors, but he got access to all these guys' archives. He had like above, like one of the highest clearances you can have, and researched a lot of these archives and conglomerated that into the book Tragedy and Hope. And there was a bunch of stuff that happened with that book where they didn't want to get it published so that it would, or they didn't want it widely distributed. And so some of the later printings like weren't like left some information out that was in the original printing.
Okay.
But I believe that changed, and some of that information was brought back in. But if you look into the story of that book, it is kind of wild how they didn't really want that to be known to everybody, the information that's in this book. But if you could have one book on your shelf, I think you should pick up Tragedy and Hope. I think it's like that's a good one to look for and to have on your shelf.
And you remember who the author was, or authors?
Carol Quigley.
Carol Quigley. Okay, thanks.
Yep. The warlords take everything, and the people still go hungry.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm not trying to laugh at anyone's pain, but this reminds me of the movie with Nick Cage, Lord of War. And it delves quite a bit into that. And from what I understand, that was it was presented as fiction, but it was basically a very, very loose documentary on a specific arms dealer. I can't remember the name of the person, but I think the main character's name is Yuri. And kind of interesting that they talk about warlords that Yuri dealt with in so many of these backwater countries, and exactly as you described, Alabama is these warlords acquire everything, and the people still go hungry, and they're still slaughtered, in wholesale.
Yep. I want to bring up that reference that you made earlier of the iron rice bowl. That's the origin of the term iron rice bowl came from G. Yoon's journal notes of the thatched adobe of close observations. A beautiful maid works in the squire's home. One day the maid breaks a bowl, but the squire does not punish her because of her beauty. After that, the maid breaks more and more bowls. In response, the squire decides to change all of the bowls to iron bowls. The maid does not need to work, but she still gets paid. Therefore, the iron rice bowl is described as a stable or even lifelong occupation that provides steady income and welfare. And the two key terms of the iron rice bowl are job entry guarantee and exit control.
Yeah, and what they don't talk about, and I'm sure it's alluded to anyway, is the idea: where did the money come from? Where did the squire get the money for that?
Right. Yeah, I have a book on the Great Famine in China that I haven't read, but it was I know one story from that in Mao. I think they had a problem with all the birds eating the seed from the
Yes.
fields,
Yep.
and so they decided that they were going to kill all the birds.
Yeah.
Well, because they killed all the birds, they let all the insects go crazy, and all the insects that were eating all the crops. So they just created a giant famine out of killing all the birds because they didn't understand the
Nope.
relationship of the birds in the ecosystem. So
Yeah, this gets into the whole idea that um, I think you and I talked about this before. The whole concept that's described in the book "Ominous Parallels" by Leonard Peikoff, and this idea that the state is some superorganism that has a great deal of knowledge above and beyond the regular person. And in this case, China, the Chinese government, the CCP government, is considered to be this entity, this superorganism with knowledge above and beyond what the average person has, and people just automatically defer judgment to this super entity, and that it really bothers me that people are so easy to accept so much authority so easily.
it's definitely one of the things that's ingrained in us psychologically, I believe, or it's one of these things where we're conditioned to look to authority figures to be able to know if this is something that we should do or not. And it takes you breaking out of that and to start thinking for yourself to be able to see beyond what these people are telling you.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be able to think critically and use the trivia method is one thing that you could use, which is to be able to absorb information, to be able to go out and test it, and then once you've tested it enough and through your different experiences, then you can integrate that and be able to um, use it as something useful in in your thinking and how you move yourself into the future.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, this was part of education in the past, in the ancient times, and our whole education system is not built on this ability to make you think critically, but to a lot of times just memorize and regurgitate information that they want you to know, so that you don't have this ability to go outside of that box that's been built for you.
Yeah, what's that old expression? At least from a good faith point of view, the expression is, "I need you to know how to think, not what to think."
Yes.
Right? Is good methodologies to use. For people who are watching this, I have a couple of counter arguments and alternatives for Worldcoin. So, and these are questions that any of us can ask anyone who's promoting not just Worldcoin but anything that's like this. So, how can this truly be anonymous? When it is required to enter a country, a concert, to pick up concert tickets, or even dating apps? I think they talked about this on the world.org website. What does Worldcoin solve that other free market and open source solutions haven't already solved? Right. So for example, if we want to talk about unique ID, why do we need World ID when there are other things such as Noster, which can help us, distinguish like that? And specifically, there are methods of verifying content that simply use public key, private key pairs, and they don't even need an iris scan, right? And the next one is it's going to come off as humorous. It's not meant to be, but how do people without eyes or whose eyes have been permanently damaged use it? Right. I mean, in a way, it's kind of, if we're sensitive to the idea of people with disabilities, well, we're cutting out entire sections of the world that don't have that, or parts of the world that don't have access to the orb. They don't have access to that technology. Are they automatically excluded from this economy, this ecology? So I think these are good faith questions that any one of us can ask, and kind of push back on this stuff.
Yeah, Noster. No. So Noster is somewhat of like a social media cryptocurrency type project.
So I wouldn't call it cryptocurrency. Basically, it definitely falls into the realm of social media, but it's a way that people can create their own ID. It's permissionless and it's open source. And it is basically the open source version of Twitter, where it cannot be censored, and it cannot be. No one can censor me from saying things, and no one can prevent me from listening to someone else speaking on Nostr. And so I think that's so important on there.
Yeah, there's definitely plenty of alternatives out there. I know. I've used the blog platform Steemit or when it first came out, and then they forked that into Hive, which Steemit was starting to like censor people, which was one of the big reasons why a lot of people use the platform. And once that censorship came in, and after Steemit was acquired by this guy Justin Sun, that a lot of the guys that were running they were witnesses for the blockchain because of its proof of stake algorithm. They forked the code and made it into Hive, the cryptocurrency blog platform, and that was one way that you could have people support you through their liking and sharing your content and all that kind of stuff by and they could actually donate directly to you with the native token so that you could go on exchanges. You can exchange it for other cryptocurrencies and things like that, so you can make money off of and a lot of people in the third world in different areas of the world were actually making some money to like get by. I know I interviewed one guy from Venezuela that was on the platform that through his posts on Hive, it was like helping his family make enough money to like get by and stuff. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So did you use both versions?
Yeah, I use Steemit and I use Hive, and so yeah, I built a little bit of a following there on Steemit back in the day, just blogging about all the stuff I was doing. That's what turned into doing the podcast and doing the live.
That's cool. That's really cool. So was Hive more of the open kind of free market version? Am I saying that correctly?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Hive is more of the folks that were wanted to break away from Steemit, which had a corporate entity that was controlling the development of the blog platform. And I guess there was this guy. So it was one of the guys that created EOS, the programmer.
Yeah.
And I think he was like, I'm not sure if it was maybe Dan Larimer, maybe was the guy. But he created it and then he passed it off to this guy, Ned. and I guess him and Ned were working together on making this thing, and Ned made it a company, or it was a company with Dan Larimer as the programmer to build the whole thing. And yeah, Dan Larimer, yeah, he then went on to create EOS, which was going to be like a competitor to Ethereum.
Oh, okay.
And then EOS was really touted about as this new cool thing that was going to happen, and that project kind of fell through. A lot of people were getting into that, and then I don't know where the developments of EOS went, but people kind of moved away from it, probably because of what was going on there.
Gotcha.
But yet, I think it was Dan Larimer and Vitalik Buterin. They were kind of on the same level.
Okay.
And Dan Larimer had this idea for creating a blog platform where people could, be able to exchange value on the blog platform, separated from all the other traditional social media stuff,
Interesting.
enabled by cryptocurrencies.
Sure. There's a part of me, I love that stuff. Even if the specific idea doesn't work, it doesn't really take off. I just love the idea that there are people who are trying to address some of these fundamental issues that are out there, and if they're out there and it works, it doesn't. But at least they're kind of pushing the boundaries. And it reminds me of Bitcoin in the sense that there were probably, half a dozen to a dozen different versions of electronic money that were tried out. There's Hashcash, Zcash, etc. All these different things that led up, and finally Bitcoin kind of hit it, and Bitcoin kind of brought together all these different features of different types of e-money that were available. And Satoshi just did a great job of kind of bring it all under one banner. So when I hear this sort of thing, I love it. I just really appreciate when people are willing to push. At a minimum, it forces all of us to rethink some of these fundamentals.
Yeah. There's at the core of all this, in order to be able to keep your humanity and not fall into these systems, I think the core thing that you need to do and focus on is get together with like-minded people that can also see these things and work towards becoming more resilient as a person, whether that be skills that are tradable skills and equipment that you can use to build some kind of business or build some kind of product. Getting yourself your basic needs, your food, water, shelter, getting that all figured out, getting out of debt, and having things like barter items on board, like you can always trade for, like liquor and ammo. You could probably always trade stuff for that. And figuring out what you can do to be able to use alternative forms of money instead of just fiat dollars. Maybe you can barter for things, or you can trade different things for being able to get the stuff that you need.
Yeah.
And building a network with people locally so that you have something established, so that you're not having to go into this system. Now, as this thing evolves, I think there are going to be tools and people that are going to be able to build like your little fake retina scan or something that'll maybe allow you to get to access stuff or whatever. So there's going to be hacks. There's going to be things that are going to be in there that are going to allow you to maybe move in and out of these things, I think. So
yes, I think there will be entire cottage industries that pop up around spoofing, right? Because that's really what this comes down to. Is, and we see this in the movies all the time. I know that from a physiological point of view, there were supposed to be certain reasons why irises are preferred, because of the fact that if a person's orbit is removed, if the actual whole eyeball is removed, it actually changes the shape, the geometry of the eye itself, and thus it changes the back end of the retina. So, that's supposed to be a defense against, using an eyeball that's been extracted from the cranium. So I get that, but, the moment we can recreate irises, that entire, the backbone of the security has been completely demolished at that point. And let's just be honest, someone's going to use AI to find a way to get around that.
I know. Yeah, I know that there's whatever the plan is, there's going to be a workaround in some way. But if you don't want to, moving into the future, hopefully enough people can be aware of this that they're not going to go into it. But if that's not a possibility, that you want to be working on our alternatives right now, you want to be proactive so that you're not going to want to be able to, you're not going to want to have to accept those things if you don't want to stay free and to stay private. So
yeah, I think that's a good point. Is being strategic means being proactive, not reactive, right? Hey Alabama put in here, Curtis Stone has mentioned several times that it's not safe to live within 2 hours of a rapidly growing city or city in general. And I think that's a really good point, Alabama, in the sense of being strategic, right? Getting away from these major metropolitan areas, and you do it when you got time, when emotion is not high, when relatively speaking, resources are available and abundant and cheap, right? And that's important. And it gives time to do what you're saying, Greg. Is gives time to get established in that area, and then to make those connections. I will say, people just in my own town here, I've actively made efforts to get to know people in here, especially just in my own street. And I think it's important to have that, and then kind of go out from there. But yeah, it's a good point, Alabama. I appreciate that.
Yes, that is critical, and I'm seeing it more and more now. And being in working in the city, like you're starting to see a lot more of this stuff being just handled through digital means, like being able to pay for things and certain things, like only being accepting credit cards for certain things, and then just the amount of stuff that's happening is like we're constantly people are getting into accidents and stuff. It's like as the city grows, it's like going through a lot of those is becoming more chaotic in the city.
If I could add to what you're saying, I was in China in May of 2017. Family and we went there for a 2-week tour on what they call the Silk Road. Really, really great. One of the best trips I've ever had in my life. And I knew that China had been tilting towards a surveillance state, police state for a while, but to see it in real time was definitely eye-opening. And through there, everything was done over the phone, where if people wanted to pay for something at a restaurant or even a street vendor, it had to be done over the phone. And I remember trying to pay for something with cash, and my uncle was like, "What are you going to do that for? They're not going to accept it." I'm like, "Well, how bad can it be?" He's like, 99%. I was like, "Oh, okay." And he was right. He was 100% right. Trying to pay for with cash for a meal was pretty much impossible. And it got to the point where my uncle was the only one who was able to pay for meals, because we didn't have the ability to pay. And I think it was called WeChat. I think that's the platform in China. And that was like their version of Facebook, but multiplied literally by 10, because it had morphed into all these different, it creeped. crept into all these different areas. And it was pretty crazy. So we're talking about 8 years ago when this is the case. And it becomes so pervasive that being able to operate without this was being shut out, from the system. So I think that kind of go back to what you're saying, Greg, is the inability to operate because of government control, and then actively finding ways to engage in some sort of free exchange. I don't know what that looks like, but I think it requires active effort to do that.
Yeah, I would like to get something going where people can meet down at the property and do some kind of start working on some of those muscles of exchange and stuff like that, and being able to figure out how we can get an alternative economy going.
Yeah.
Like some trade days or something like that.
Yeah. You want to take a quick break?
Yeah, we can do that. Do a comedy break here.
Yeah. I think I sent over a couple of IG videos.
Yes, sir. Let's see. Let me grab one of those here. Bring it up real quick here. All right.
The manager for the managerial logistics for management management. Welcome to your new hire orientation, trained by new hires who are trained by new hires under new hires program. For a moment, I want to talk about what does it mean to build a plane while flying up. Here at this company, we're building the plane while flying. I know that sounds scary. I know that's tumultuous. But think about how exciting it is to be on a new team with a bunch of people up in the sky, and you kind of are clear on your destination, but you don't know all the resources and tools to get there. But you have to because you're already in the sky. The other day in a meeting, someone asked me to land the plane, and I said, I wish I could. For those of you that are a little afraid when you're up in the sky and you're ready to put on your mask before you put on another, but you realize we haven't got to that part of the building yet, so you don't have it. Stay calm. We're driving the business forward. We're still working on our deliverables. We're doing everything that we can to circle up. Hi, I'm coordinator, the manager for the managerial logistics for management management.
So anyone who's working in the corporate world, that should bring out a lot of pain and maybe some smiles. So
the manager for the management manager management.
Yeah. So I used to work at
the plane while you're on the plane.
Oh my gosh. So I used to work at a company in New Jersey. It was a manufacturing company that made knee and hip implants. And I left. That was my last company in New Jersey. I left there, went to Seattle, and I remember going back and visiting, friends and family in New Jersey, but also going back to that company. 5 years later, I'd say about 80% of the people I didn't recognize. They had switched over so many times, so they had definitely moved into the new hire, trained the new hire, and that's some scary stuff right there. There's almost zero continuity.
Yeah. I mean, I've only worked for one larger company, and yeah, you're very much like just another cog in the machine when you're working at a big company.
Yeah. I worked at Microsoft for a little while, and I was very dissatisfied with it. So, I don't know much about Microsoft. I can just tell you my relevant experience. And I was very much a small gear in a bigger cog in a massive wheel. And that was very disheartening because, as an ERP project manager, I was used to working with a very wide variety of people from all different levels, from the C-suite to the people in the mailroom. And I enjoyed working with all different types, truly. So that was part of the, for me, that was part of the allure of being a project manager in a business analyst on ERP projects like Oracle and SAP, and that was fun. But being typecast, I like hey Alabama's feedback here. It's good to know at least 3 different ways to get in and out of your area. Yep. If nothing else, for bad weather, I've had to backtrack because of flooding after storms and get home another way. Yeah, very good point. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've been caught in some sticky stuff with flooding as well.
Oh, if I could add to that, if I could enhance what you're saying, paper maps. Get paper maps. And what's interesting is when my parents and I were touring this area, we tried to get paper maps of the area. It was impossible to find them. Normally, you just go to a gas station, right? And they got plenty of them. Yeah, I actually eventually I had to go on online and order maps for this area. So I would get the atlases with the spiral bound atlases, right? I got one for the entire country, one for Alabama, and of course I had to get local ones for this county, which have the local roads, county roads, etc. But yeah, that was definitely something important. And Alabama, you're talking about getting your kids properly trained up, and I think just basic navigation is one of those skills that need to be added to, whether it be political maps, topographical maps, or road maps. Those are all important.
Yeah, Alan Booker was out at the Self-Reliance Festival, and he taught they had a teen program this year, and he was doing a bunch of different type of stuff with the teens that were there, and he was talking to us about how some of the younger kids, they don't know how to even orient using the sun, where the direction of the sun is when it rises in the east and sets in the west, and how you can orient yourself using that. And so just basically, just basic skills on how to figure out your direction, and paper maps, that's big. Like, I was on a trip not too long ago coming back from doing some work at a friend's place with their solar system in Virginia, and me and my buddy were driving back, and we're like, yeah, we should bust out the paper map so that we can just navigate with that. We totally missed our exit. Like, I had to backtrack because like we weren't following it so well on the paper map. But like, yeah, I remember going on trips when I was younger with the parents, and basically be able to take the interstate pretty easily, and there'd be a couple places where you'd have to get and go to get your direction of travel and everything. But yeah, you'd plan your route, you'd write it out on the map first before you went, and you'd write out all the little exits that you need to take. And yeah, it takes a little bit more effort, but yeah, it's worth it to be able to navigate with those maps in case you're not able to access. Like, I almost have like a little bit of a get freaked out a little bit if my phone's about to die and I don't know where I am. I'm like, oh crap. So yeah, it's a good idea to have those paper maps on hand.
Yeah.
In case something were to happen.
To add to what you're saying, when I was with SF, we did a ton of land nav, and one of the techniques of it that I learned while I was there was create a story, right? So it's one thing to plot the points, the waypoints on the map. It's another thing to be able to actually go through from waypoint 1 to waypoint 2, and one of the best ways I had heard and learned was actually create a story. I'm going from waypoint to waypoint to say, okay, on the left-hand side, I've got this ridge. On the right-hand side, I'll encounter the bend in a river, and that'll be, in 800 meters. After that, I should recross the road at about 550 meters and create a story. So, it's similar to what you're just saying. There was a website back in the late 90s, early 2000s, MapQuest. And, before the advent of smartphones, you could print out the instructions and it told a story. It was pretty good at that. And for us, this was building a story over topographical maps. And that was a huge help, be able to do that. And that helped a lot where I didn't have to have this big map out all the time. Right, as long as I have my pace count, my ranger beads, my anal beads, right on there, and I was able to plot it out. And I'm just looking at my story. I'm like, okay, I see this ridge, I see this bend in the river, and I'm just following my story. I'm pretty good. I can probably put the map away. And as long as I'm just being habitual about checking where I am on my waypoints, I'm good.
Yeah, that's a good tip, man. I haven't heard of anybody describe doing your navigation that way, but I'm gonna take that to heart.
Yeah, it's a huge help. And to add to that, there's these great map cases you can get online. And it's basically just clear plastic. They're basically waterproof. And you just put your map in there. You fold the map in a certain way that wherever your AO, your area of operation, you fold it in such a way that you can have it available to you, but you can also fold the map case up and put it away. And if you don't need it, it's away. If you do need it, you can pull it out. And most of the good ones have even lanyards you can use. You can hang it and you can pull it up. There's also a way that you can cut a map down the center, so you can fold it in certain ways. So that way, it's easier to have your AO exposed all the time, and you just make a single cut across the center, and it's very 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 helpful.
I lost your audio. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, weird.
Hang on 1 second. Can you hear me now? Any good?
Oh, not getting your audio.
Strange.
Not sure what's going on here.
Let me I'll recycle.
Yeah, type in the private chat what you think. Yeah, if you want to pop out, pop back in, you can do that. So it might be on my end. I had some other stuff going on. Hey, Alabama. Before MapQuest sold, yeah, I've been there. I mean, I'm pretty much in the same spot.
Hopefully,
Let's see. Can I hear you now?
It's good.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yep. I don't know what happened.
It happens.
StreamYard. You had another little comedy thing.
Yeah,
there.
I don't remember what I sent over.
Let's see.
Yeah, here we go. Talking about the old days. Everyone's going to relate to this.
It goes along with Hey Alabama, yeah. Before MapQuest sold. Kids these days will never know the struggle. Estimated time left 39 years, 8.89 megabytes of 180 megabytes copied.
This is not an exaggeration. Your download speed would slow down to the point where Windows would make this kind of absurd estimate, and you'd sigh and leave the room for a while because you couldn't use the computer while it was doing this for fear it would crash and lose all your progress. And then you come back in 40 minutes, and maybe it would now say 52 years, or maybe it would say 3 minutes. Who knew? Not Windows. I didn't see the comment. The biggest fear was a phone call. That is so on point.
Yeah, while you were downloading. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, back in the dial-up days. Yeah.
I remember there were even special plugins that you could get to put in line with your dial-up that would cut off the ability to get call waiting, because that clicking sound would throw off the modem.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The sound is breaking up for both of you. What we're getting on the other end there. So, yeah, it might be because I'm on Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi might not be able to handle everything. So I'm gonna close some of these tabs that I have up here, and maybe that'll help out. But
for those of you who are listening, we're trying to close down a few apps and see if that will free up some CPU cycles for dedicating to the show.
Yeah.
While Greg is doing that, maybe we can cover one of the logical fallacies, which is the moving the goalpost logical fallacy. And hopefully that would be something we can get into. And it's interesting. I'm just kind of like filling in a little bit here. So going back to the main topic, which is Worldcoin, if you kind of go through Worldcoin's webpage and they say, well, it has all these different functions and things and processes and methodologies, things that it can address. One thing I've seen is that many times these different crypto assets try to do everything under the sun. And I've also seen this as an ERP project manager. They try to make one software platform do everything under the sun, and it usually ends up being a massive problem because they're trying to dump all these different functions, these untested functions. Interesting. Well, I appreciate the feedback, Rana.
I think it switched over to my webcam for some reason, so I switched it back over. So hopefully that helped out.
Okay. Well, Brianna, if you still hear us breaking up, please let us know. I appreciate the feedback. And instead of just having the software do the core the core function where it does very, very well because it's been validated, they try to dump all these different things in there. And we've seen this with different crypto assets. They're trying to make it do everything under the sun. One of the reasons why I like Bitcoin so much is because it's, for the most part, just meant to be money. It's just meant to be a method of exchanging value over the internet. And that's it. And it's not all these different things. As compared to Ethereum, they try to put everything, including the kitchen sink, in this virtual ecology. And the more we can have very, very limited scope on these different assets, the better. And if we need two things, we bring in two things, two different functions covered by two different crypto assets, bring them together in some way, shape, or form, and let them continue to do what they do very well. And then we have some sort of tie between the two. It's kind of like saying, well, I want gravity to attract things, but I also want them sometimes to be able to push things away, but sometimes I want gravity to create light, all these different things. It's like, no, I want gravity to always just have attraction, and I want to be exactly constant, throughout the entire universe. So that level of consistency is so necessary in there. And so the reason why I'm saying this is because with Worldcoin, they're trying to put all these different functions in there. And if you were to push back against someone and tell them, look, how about if you want all these different functions, then let's just create open source software or crypto assets that do just that one thing. That's it. And someone who's promoting Worldcoin, they're going to say, yeah, but. And what they're going to do is engaging in moving the goalposts, logical fallacy, right? And I think that is something we all do as humans, right? And as humans, we've encountered other people doing that to us as well, is the moving the goalposts, logical fallacy. So let me pause there and just want to make sure, just checking with the audience to see if we're still breaking up.
Yeah, I don't know what the audio quality is sounding like on the other end, but I think I've checked it all out as far as I can on my end. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Checked it all out.
Well, hopefully, it's still being recorded, and once it's done, it'll be on YouTube, and hopefully the audience can check out the rest of the show. It's still being recorded, and
It sounds like it's coming through, but it is a little choppy.
Okay.
So it's gotten worse. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I guess we'll cover this and then we can wrap it up.
Sounds good. So moving the goalposts is basically demanding from an opponent that he or she address more and more points after the initial counter argument has been satisfied, refusing to concede or accept the opponent's arguments. So basically, it's moving the quote-unquote goalposts, virtually speaking, metaphorically speaking, further and further back. So that way, once the initial argument has been addressed satisfactorily, the person who's using the moving the goalpost logical fallacy, they bring in another argument, right? And basically, what it comes down to is they don't want to be pinned down. They don't want to create what we call a falsifiable assertion. And what it comes down to is they don't ever want to be shown that they're wrong. And so they will continue to make more and more arguments that either cannot be argued with, they're not falsifiable, or they hope emotionally just to continue to tie up the counterparty so much that they get sick and tired of arguing, you know. And so I may have used this in the past. I've had it used against me quite a bit. I've gotten to the point where if I even detect that there's a possibility of a debate that's about to happen, in order to avoid the moving the goalposts logical fallacy or any other logical fallacy, I try to say, okay, let's not get into a debate. Let's just define the terms first, right? Let's define the definition of words, and how about give me a falsifiable assertion first and foremost? What are you asserting? And then how do you falsify it? How do we show that your assertion could be wrong? And that usually is met with a lot of consternation and resistance, because let's just be honest, nobody wants to be wrong, right? We don't like it. And so getting people to get to that point where they're very definitive about what they want is usually met with resistance. So we've all seen it. We've all been there, right? It happens. And I will tell you from my personal experience, what I usually look for as an indicator that a person is using or is about to use the moving the goalpost logical fallacy is if I find myself continuing to address new arguments that a person injects in real time, then I'm probably debating with a person who's using this logical fallacy. Okay. And the defense against that is call them out, show them, and the people who are around us watching this debate or your debate, that they are using this logical fallacy, and ask that they, and so I need to be specific and reply. Of course, we could say this with any time logical fallacies are used, but it's particularly important for moving the goalpost logical fallacy is don't be afraid to call them out. You don't have to do it, as maliciously, but just say, I don't think that's a really valid argument, because you're just continuing to add in more and more conditions, right? And for those who like psychology, there's a great book called Games People Play. I think it's authored by Eric Berne, B-E-R-N-E. And these are basically, if you're into transactional analysis, it's basically a branch, or I should say a methodology within psychology. And one of the games is called "Why Don't You ... Yeah, but ... And this is a kind of the emotional version of moving the goalpost logical fallacy. And it comes down to two people's egos who are always trying to outdo each other. One person is saying, I can come up with more problems than you can come up with solutions. And the second person is saying, I can come up with more back and forth, as long as people are in this realm of always trying to outdo each other. And I think that this logical fallacy comes into that, right? It's the ego, that comes to play in here. Is I'm always going to come up with an additional condition that you can never outdo. And so the thing to do is just call them out. It's just saying you're using a logical fallacy. And And if they refuse to acknowledge it, then just don't play the game anymore. Just withdraw from the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a lot of times where it's like I've gotten into debates about things and it's like, okay, this evidence that you presented is not good enough for me. So what's some other evidence to support what you're talking about? And then you provide this other piece of evidence and it's like, okay, I guess you're not going to accept any of that. So
Right.
I guess we're done playing this game.
Yeah.
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 We've all seen it. I guarantee you we've all done it. And I think part of it is we want to say something profound. And so we blurt out something without maybe having thought about it, with great depth and detail. And we haven't thought about it with any reasonable amount of rigor. And so we blurt something out. It happens, and yet we don't want to we don't want to roll it back. It's like, okay.
Right.
It happens.
Yep. All right, Jay. Well, where can people check you out, find you, what you got going on, all that stuff?
Yeah. So for anyone who's interested in Bitcoin, please feel free to check us out on meetup.com. And our group is Bitcoin, Huntsville, Crypto, and Coffee. I'll make sure that I send the link, or Greg might have the link for our meetup group. Great group. We have just a good group of people from all different walks of life, all different levels of experience with Bitcoin. All we want to do is help people be comfortable with the Bitcoin technology. And the only way that happens is through knowledge and understanding. We're not selling anything except for do the work, DTW, DYOR, do your own research. That's all we ask for. You just come to the table in good faith and be willing to put in the work to understand what Bitcoin is. And it's always there's always something more to learn about this. I've been in this since late 2012, early 2013, so about a dozen years now, and I'm still learning about it. And there's a great deal of gratification and satisfaction I receive from being able to help newbies who come to the table and they say, I hear about this thing, Bitcoin. I don't know what it's all about. Can you help us? Help me. I want to help my patient on YouTube that I made available. I call Bitcoin the ultimate freedom accelerator because it gets government out of our lives. Get those 6 special words, get government out of the way. And I think that's so important, is getting on a hard money standard, making sure that people understand that there is a way of spinning oneself out of the system, and that throughout history, for thousands of years, we've seen that any time a country uses soft money, fiat currency, that is the primary means by which governments engage in interference, where they interfere with our lives, they obstruct our ability to engage in excellence and defending individual liberty. And those countries which implement a hard money standard always thrive. They are the ones that actually protect the individual liberty of the people, and they foster free markets. They foster ecologies of risk-taking and innovation and investing and saving. And the countries that use soft money, that use fiat currency, they will always engage in intrusive and obtrusive maneuvers by the state. So that's what's important to me, is to spread the cause of individual liberty. And I think Bitcoin is the way that we do that. We all spit ourselves out of the system through Bitcoin.
Excellent. And you have a blog project that's coming up.
So yeah, I do. I'm hoping I can have it ready to roll out by Jan 1. I'm not saying you have to go there right now, but the name of the website is bitcoininpeace.com. Bitcoininpeace.com. It's very raw. I'm still putting things together, but I will put together for Greg the link to the open series, and that will be something that anyone can read. That open series is done. It's a 22-part series, and it basically makes the base case for Bitcoin. Why I think Bitcoin is so important. It is the first true form of money we've ever actually seen, and this coming from a guy who really appreciates gold and what gold has done for us as a species. I think Bitcoin is a once in a species event, and I make the case for why Bitcoin is so important for all of us, right? Whether we're into personal finance or economics or macroeconomics or anything like that, I think Bitcoin is going to be the method for getting government out of our lives, because fiat currency is the means by which it engages in all this intrusive behavior. So I hope it's not something that's onerous, that it's and I bring the receipts, tons of endnotes, references, and citations that are in there, and try to show that throughout history, every time countries or governments or states get away from a hard money standard, invariably they end up in decline. And so that's the opening series is about that, trying to show that not only is the hard money standard possible, but it is the only way to get that link to Greg, and we can make that happen.
All right. Great. And folks, like, subscribe, share the channel, help the channel grow, and we'll get more information out to all y'all. And then if you want to check out my other social media, is Take the Ride 23, where I've been documenting my fitness journey. Started from 2 years ago, doing workouts every day, and it's really about getting active and changing your life one day at a time and staying consistent. So if you need some inspiration in that front, go check out that channel. And appreciate all y'all for coming to hang out. Hey, Alabama. Brianna, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. And we'll catch you guys next time for another Truth Seeking Thursday here with Jay. And hope everybody has a wonderful 2 weeks from now. We'll be back for another Thursday edition. So
I just put a link in the private chat. I don't know if you want to put it in the comments for everyone, but that is the first article in the 22-part series on there. And please excuse my mess as I get the front end squared away. But I appreciate all of you.
all right, go check them out, guys, and share this episode around and let everybody know what's going on with Worldcoin, and don't get that redness scan.
Yeah.